All of these religions that have been talked about over the years, they are all offshoot creations of the biblical text. Make sure you guys understand this. So we're going to look at this, which I just put on the screen. Inky is the same person as Azazel, the chief fallen angel. Do you guys make sure you're following? You have Inky. In the culture was the Sumerians, god of water, wisdom, magic, creation, warned of the flood. Original identity as the fallen watcher. Okay? Then there was different religions in that area after the Tower of Babel. So in Egypt, Inky, who was Azazel, the chief fallen angel, was also Osiris from Egypt, god of the underworld, resurrection, sacred knowledge. Then later on in Egypt, they had Thoth. Remember, guys, these are demigods that all these different ancient religions worshipped. Thoth, god of writing, magic, wisdom, sacred knowledge. Then the Greek demigod was Prometheus. Remember, they made the movie about Prometheus. He was a demigod, a titan, who stole fire knowledge from the gods and gave it to man. And then in the Greek-Roman time period, Hermes and Mercury. In the Babylonian time period, in the Philistines, Dagon, half man, half fish god who rose from the sea and taught civilization. The Aztecs, South America, the ones where we see all those pyramids down there. I can't even pronounce his name on the Aztec side, the Mayans. But it's all connected to Lucifer and his fallen angel, Azazel, Book of Enoch. Do you guys understand where I'm going with this? Because every one of these cultures that we're looking at, whether it's the Greek or the Egyptians or the Sumerians or the Aztecs or even the Hindu culture, they all have a flood that happened in the early days. Understand, this is Satan's deception. They all are connected to the truth, which was the fallen angels from the Bible. All fallen angels and their offspring, the Nephilim. The Nephilim offspring were all these additional demigods that they worshipped. Zeus. You know, you name it. Go down the list of all the ancient religions. I'm just helping you guys wrap your head around what we're dealing with right now, because this is going to become a thing. Now that they're revealing the technology of these ancient pyramids and what they're talking about, you have to remember their connection, because you're going to hear a lot of these names over the next few months. You're going to hear them talk about Thoth and Osiris and Prometheus and Hermes and Dagon. And they're going to pitch these as aliens from different races and different planets. You know, they'll even go down the road to the Anunnaki and how they're connected to the Mormons and blah, 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 blah. And they'll try to discredit all of these religions. And they're going to tie it all in to the alien race that seeded the planet. Understand, it's all deception. Because what it really is the fallen angels, the watchers, the 200 that came down and landed on Mount Hermon, which was very close to the pyramid's location. Garly News, I don't think Nimrod was connected in this. Nimrod was a very important figure in the pre-Diluvian era. He was a king, but Nimrod's special powers came from obtaining the garments of glory that he stole Understand, guys, the garments of glory gave him powers. But that there is a false narrative going around that Nimrod was, a Nephilim, demigod. He wasn't. He had stolen the garments of glory, the priestly garments that were worn. These were taken. And that's where he got his powers. So Zeus, yes, connected to Satan. So what they're going to do, sorry guys, swallowed my coffee the wrong way. They are going to discount and eliminate the religions of this world through pitching this alien race that seeded the planet. All right, guys, what I'm showing you right here is a little chart. Seeing how someone asked about Nimrod to show you how the garments of glory went, okay? God gave them to Adam. Adam gave them to Seth. Seth gave them to Enoch. Enoch gave them to Methuselah. Methuselah gave them to Noah. When Noah was passed out drunk, Ham stole the garments. Remember that Ham got cursed? They don't really talk about it. You have to read between the lines and read in Jasher. It explains. Ham gave them to Cush. Cush gave them to Nimrod. That's where Nimrod got these powers. These supernatural powers that people think he was a Nephilim. No, he had the garments of glory. All right, just making sure everybody's tracking, because they're going to use this technology, everything that they're doing is all connected to the Great Deception. So I've kind of spelled out who Inky is. He's a major figure in the Sumerian, Babylonian mythology. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the Greek or ancient Egypt. I showed you that chart. I'll put it back up one more time so make sure everybody is tracking. So, Inky was known as the god of warrior, creation, wisdom, technology. He is a fallen angel chief. He is often portrayed as a serpent-bearing figure holding knowledge and secrets meant for the gods. Inky is credited in giving mankind forbidden knowledge, creating humanity. The Sumerian texts talk about this, and he is defying the orders of God. But in the Sumerian texts and all the other Aztec writings, it was higher gods that he was defying. But just understand that these are all just satanic narratives to distract from the truth, which is why Lucifer created all these different offshoots. But one thing he didn't do was to eliminate the flood myth, which connects them all. Defying the orders of the higher God to help human beings survive the flood. So many mythologies have this same benevolent figure. But understand it's all part of the deception. So we simply can compare Inky in biblical scriptures and we find he's an exact match to the fallen angels described in Genesis 6. Especially the ones that descended down on Mount Hermon and gave mankind the forbidden knowledge in direct rebellion against God. The sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they were fair. They took them wives of all which they chose. Genesis 6:2. The sons of God in this verse are the fallen angels, known as the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. They descended to earth and taught forbidden knowledge to mankind. This includes weapon making, enhancements, astrology, building technologies. The Book of Enoch goes into very great depths about this, like Azazel, Semjaza, these chief fallen angels that corrupted the earth. First Enoch, and they began to sin against the birds and the beasts, and they taught them sorcery and enhancements, and cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. Alchemy. One of these fallen angel beings taught pagan religions. He was the bringer of wisdom. Now we're talking about Inky again. The same way Lucifer is described in Isaiah 14 as one who wanted to ascend to the heavens and be like God. So Inky's symbol in Sumerian art is often a serpent, a creature universally associated with deception and forbidden knowledge. In the Garden of Eden, we saw this serpent offering her secret knowledge that leads to mankind's fall. This mirrors how Inky gave mankind forbidden wisdom against divine command from God. So we're starting to see how Inky, he is not that mythological character. Everything is tied back to the truth of what the Bible says. The intention is to influence ancient civilizations, to replace God with technology, to have the humans worship the creation instead of divinity itself. Where does that ring a bell? You see it now with the elite worshiping Mother Earth, with their end times, save the planet narrative, and green and climate change and global warming, that whole lie. So the Great Pyramids of Egypt, specifically the Great Pyramid of Giza, this structure is far too precise and massive to be explained by Egyptians with primitive tools and human labor alone. Guys, we already had doubts before these new megalithic structures were released. Ancient legends, even the Egyptian texts, plainly spell that gods taught the people how to build these massive monuments. It's in their hieroglyphics. Not sure why, modern science and other things don't really just say it for what it is, because it's spelled out in their texts. But see, these gods were not just gods at all. They were the fallen angels, the same watchers from Genesis 6 and the Book of Enoch. These beings used their heavenly divine knowledge, advanced energy manipulation, and sound frequency technology to construct massive megalithic structures. Not just in Egypt, but all over the world. We see it in the Mayans. We see it buried in the snow in Antarctica. We see it buried in the snow in Alaska. It's all over the place. Their goal was to establish centers of worship, power, and occult significance aligned with the celestial bodies. In First Enoch it says, and the watchers taught them signs of the earth, the knowledge of the clouds, and the courses of the moon. These teachers formed the basis of astrology, sacred geometry, megalithic alignment tools used in the pyramids. So guys, all these demigods, doesn't matter if you're talking about the Mayans, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, whatever you want to call it, these were all fallen angels. These teachings formed the basis of astrology, sacred geometry, megalithic structure alignment, everything. The pyramids themselves were energy multipliers placed on key earth points, ley lines, to access dimensional power. The Great Pyramids align with Orion's belt, a very specific constellation in the ancient religions. They believed that's where the fallen angels and their offspring returned to. The Great Pyramid of Giza I don't believe was a tomb. I think it was a massive energy complex, a relic from the pre-flood technologies established by the fallen angels. The Great Pyramid functioned as an ancient power plant, tapping into very specific vibrations of the earth itself. They were all precisely engineered components of a very complex machine, specifically shaped and lined with quartz crystal containing granite, which resonates under pressure, producing a specific type of energy. And this isn't just, speculation. This is modern science that have proved this principle, and even Nikola Tesla as well, where the pressure of very specific crystals like quartz creates an electrical charge. The water from the underground aquifers beneath the pyramid flowed into the sealed chambers beneath the structure, creating pressure and mechanical vibrations. These vibrations would be transmitted through the limestone structure, exciting the quartz granite in the king's chamber, generating a high-frequency resonance. In essence, it was a giant tuning fork, resonating the Earth's natural harmonic frequencies, harnessing this resonance, amplifying it into direct energy. What's more compelling is when we examine how this energy was used. With no soot on the ceilings of passageways, no evidence of torches, nothing. Many folks wonder, how did the builders see in the dark? Here's the thing. The pyramids were powered through wireless lighting. Same thing that Nikola Tesla talked about, but it was done thousands of years before. The Great Pyramids functioned very similar to Tesla's Watercliff Tower, which J.P. Morgan realized would eliminate their monopoly on energy and pulled his funding and tore it down and then ruined his name. You guys understand what happened to Tesla, right? I don't need to go into detail about why he was shut down. If you guys have not watched the teachings that I've done about the turn of the century, everything connected to, the Titanic, Tesla, all of this, beginning of the century was the turning point and the start of the beast system. Tesla was the smartest elite of his day. He had figured out the fallen angel tech. J.P. Morgan knew that he had to stop him. This would have been a major setback for the elites if that free technology and this type of technology was got out to the general public. Because worldwide what we have was these pyramid structures connected via ley lines, forming a global energy grid that powered the entire world in the fallen angel age. Not only did it power it, but there were communication devices, spacecraft, and they used it to open dimensional portals to different parts of the universe, different realms. Guys, it talks about this stuff in the Book of Enoch, and now it all makes sense. The Giza pyramids sits atop of a major Earth energy node, part of the global web of electromagnetic ley lines. They interconnect the most ancient megalithic sites, Stonehenge, Easter Island, Machu Picchu, and others. The pyramid's placement in a very, very specific part of the Earth's landmass is not by accident. It is perfect alignment down to the millimeter. Precise mathematics. It was intentionally anchored to redistribute electromagnetic energy throughout the planet. Just imagine this pyramid functioning as a receiver and transmitter for each node in a planetary network overseen by the fallen angels. Modern scans of the pyramid have also revealed all these hidden voids, metallic anomalies, thermal inconsistencies, leaving traces of the energy that is still present in these ancient structures. The Great Pyramids can focus on very specific electromagnetic waves in specific chambers, particularly the King's Chamber. These waves were not just used for energy, but for communication through other realms. And they were also used to influence the conscious state of mind, opening doorways between dimensions. The fallen angels, they talked about this, and it's noted in Enoch. So this is just not science fiction. This is perfectly in line with what the fallen angels talked about and taught about their sorcerers, blending physics with forbidden spiritual technologies. What's even more interesting is that there's no capstone on the pyramid anymore. That capstone, made of gold or some other conductive material, it was the resonator and emitter, channeling the pyramid's internal energy outward. Without it, the system is incomplete. But in its full original form, the Great Pyramid was a functioning energy beacon. Just like the Tower of Babel was made of stone, reaching into the heavens literally and spiritually. Just like God stopped the rebellion with the Tower of Babel, he stopped it again with the Great Flood. Understand the biblical implications are massive here, guys. The pyramids were an energy center created by the fallen angels before the flood. Humanity was plugged into a technological matrix created by angels. They weren't just buildings for utility. They were building temples of power to usurp God's natural order. They weren't tombs. They were engines of spiritual control intended to take over God. This was the reason of the flood. The bones of the machines are still remain. You see them now, but they're missing specific key pieces. But we can see what they originally were through these elements left behind. And now that they have exposed the actual structures and their megalithic size, it's proving everyone's theory that has thought this. But here's the thing, our governments today, the secret societies, they've been using this technology for a long time. CERN, HARP, all the global 5G towers, they are modern replicators of this global energy grid the fallen angels used. The pyramids are being reactivated through rituals, AI, and frequency manipulation. I will tell you one thing for certain. Satan wants his old kingdom back before the flood. And what did the Bible say? Is it will be just like the days of Noah. We are literally seeing it play out in real time before our very eyes. This is the chart. It lists the names of all these demigods on the left. Okay? All of these names that I'm talking about, all of these names, Osiris, Horus, Thoth, these are all the same fallen angels. You'll see at the bottom, Azazel. But in each culture, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Babylonians, the Philistines, the Greek, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Sumerian, they all have a different name attached. but they all are a fallen angel, the same fallen angel, just a different name in a different part of the world in a different dynasty time period. And they were all connected to a flood with a different story for why the flood happened. So, what we're going to see is all these different variations, all these different aliases of these fallen angels and their offspring, the Nephilim. Inky himself was associated with this stuff. Again, these all tie back to the fallen angels. It was all the same fallen angel leader. You will see that all their different names overlap with the identities of gods like Osiris, all linked, every one of them tied to the pyramid worship. The priests of Egypt practiced rituals meant to communicate with these beings. A lot of them are in the literal hieroglyphics that are on the walls of these pyramids, these temples, these pyramid chambers. These rituals were designed to open spiritual gateways. But now they're doing it through CERN colliders. See, Jesus came to destroy the works of the enemy. 1 John 3:8. His authority is far above all the principalities and powers, including these ancient beings who deceived mankind and led entire nations into idol worship. Think about it. Think about Egypt. They all worshipped these demigods. Think about, you can go down the list that's on the screen right now. They all are linked to these demigods. Even the Hindu nation worships these demigods. All linked to the fallen angels, guys. The fallen angels built their kingdom on pride, deception, forbidden technology. But Christ came to restore truth, humility, and redemption. The pyramids and the false gods of the old will, they crumbled. And the kingdom of Jesus Christ is going to reign forever. Now, why this matters? Because the reason Satan and the fallen angels built monuments like the pyramids was to establish dominion and to distract humanity from the one true God. Today, the same spirit of deception is being revived through New Age beliefs, alien disclosures, secret societies, false light religions, all pointing back to ancient Egypt. It is no coincidence that even the US dollar has a pyramid with an all-seeing eye symboling the Luciferian control and their hidden technology. Guys, you can't make this up. As in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the coming of the Son of Man. The same beings that taught humanity how to defy God then are now returning through CERN technology and occult science. Understand what I am telling you guys. We are literally in the last days of the last days. Just making sure all you guys are tracking with me. All right, so we're going to go into the Orion connection and the Stargate. So the alignment of the three pyramids at Giza with the stars of Orion's belt is not just an architectural coincidence. It is the blueprint of the fallen angelic agenda encoded into the stones of earth. The layout mimics, with stunning accuracy, everything that they taught that you see in the Emerald Tablets and the Anunnaki. In fact, satellite imaging and star charts confirm that the Giza Plateau mirrors Orion's belt, not only in alignment, but also in proportionality, spacing, and the orientation to the Milky Way, just as the pyramids relate to the Nile River. This exactness, achieved thousands of years ago with no advanced tools, proves that the supernatural intelligence behind the design was sought to connect Earth with the Orion Gateway, a dimensional intersection between realms. See, in ancient Egyptian theology, Orion was words are hard. It was connected to Osiris, the god of death, the god of resurrection, and the god of the underworld. Pharaohs were said to become one with Osiris after death, ascending to Orion through rituals designed to transform the soul into a star. This so-called resurrection wasn't godly. It was a counterfeit immortality, a mimic of God's promise of eternal life through corrupted technology and forbidden spiritual paths. The ancient texts claim that the pharaoh's soul traveled through a cosmic underworld mapped by the gates, tunnels, and celestial passageways. Guys, this isn't fantasy. It is the fallen realm's version of spiritual ascension, using rituals, architecture, celestial alignment to channel souls through star portals. They did this. Let's not forget that Satan has always tried to mirror and counterfeit the throne of God. Isaiah 14:13 records Satan's own words, "I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds." He was obsessed with ascending into the stars. It reflected in Orion's worship. The pyramids, they were a temporal Jacob's ladder, just like in Jacob's dream in Genesis 28, except corrupted. Jacob saw angels ascending and descending on a heavenly ladder. The pyramids, in contrast, were physical ladders for spiritual rebellion, built with geometry, resonance to open the gates, portals not authorized by God, using angelic technology. We see it through the occult traditions, ancient and modern. They place Orion at the center of their worship. The Freemasons, whose architecture and symbols mirror pyramidology, revere Orion as part of their cosmic blueprint. Words are hard. The all-seeing eye seen on the dollar. That is Horus and Lucifer that sits above the pyramid. It's on our dollar, overlaid with the stars of Orion. Even NASA has named one of its most advanced spacecraft after Orion because they too are being guided by ancient blueprints. But behind these names and symbols, it all ties back to the fallen angel Inky. Inky, who is Azazel, connected to Lucifer, with several other names in the Aztec culture. In the Babylonian Philistine culture, it was Dagon. In the Greek-Roman culture, it was Mercury. In the Old Greek culture, it was Prometheus. In the newest Greek-Egyptian culture, it was Thoth. In the original Egyptian culture, it was Osiris. And in the Sumerian culture, it was Inky. But it was all just the fallen angel. From a biblical perspective, Orion is not a benign constellation. Job 38:31 says, "Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loosen Orion's belt?" Indicating that God alone controls these heavenly gates. It talks about it in Job. This verse hints that Orion is chained, part of a divine restriction, a gateway by God. That is active. God holds the key, but the fallen angels figured out how to pick the lock. Through ancient technology, they used it to open the door on Orion's belt. They are doing it again right now with the CERN colliders. They're reactivating the gateway and reestablishing their dominion on Earth. They are literally going to open up the doors to hell. Pull their friends out that are bound. That will be the 3 days of darkness. This Orion as a gateway is not unique to just Egypt. You can see it in Dagon, the tribe of Mali. This advanced knowledge was all taught by the fallen angels, guys. Doesn't matter what culture you go to, they all tie it to Orion. All the religions, even the Hindus, talk about descended from the stars to teach civilization. Every one of the quote-quote dynasties all taught about the Great Flood. All of them talk about Orion. It's consistent through every shared teaching. Doesn't matter if it's Hindu, Greek, Aztec. It's all connected because they are all counterfeiting God's creation and design. This is a spiritual dimension doorway that God uses. Enter the Stargate. You've seen them talk about the Stargate. 1978 was when they first started using it. Many of you guys have heard about me talk about this. It's not a new program. They're just resurrecting it because they're talking about it now. Stargate is a portal, a dimensional bridge that is being used to pass between realms. In like science fiction movies, it's often depicted as a ring vortex, but in reality, it takes form of geometry, frequency, and resonance, especially tied to the ley lines and harmonic structures of the pyramids. The Great Pyramid, with it energized with its top cap, that gold end cap that has been removed, is a stabilizing field to fire up the Stargate, aligned to Orion, to anchor the specific frequency to open the doorway. This is why CERN is operating. It's all fallen angel technology. It becomes clear now. CERN is working to open these portals today by using electromagnetics and particle collisions. Pyramids, they were ancient versions of the same CERN technology, using natural frequencies, Earth's harmonics, quartz resonance, stellar alignment to pierce the veil between realms. The goal was the same: to bring in other dimensional entities, to let the fallen bound come back, and eventually rule the world. God told us this would happen in the Bible. The Book of Enoch even speaks of the gates of the stars, a place of punishment where angels are bound in regions above the firmament. These gates are real, and they align with a structure on this planet connected to Orion. Literally equivalent to dialing in the address on your GPS to a realm. The elite today are obsessed with Orion because they know what it is. They know it leads to the prison and to the throne. They know that it is a gateway and a curse. and they want to open it again. They want their friends back to fulfill the promises that they talk about in the Bible. Inky, Osiris, Lucifer, they're all connected. They want to bring their, quote, gods back. This is why we see Orion imagery, pyramid imagery, gateways in Hollywood, pop culture, NASA missions, ancient rituals. It's all a massive reactivation ritual in plain sight right before our very eyes. And it's all in the Bible. Revelations 9 says the abyss will be opened, and the entities long imprisoned will pour out upon the earth. The pyramids are aligned to this dimensional gateway of Orion. CERN and HARP are the modern keys. We are on the verge of them unlocking that door again. And the resurrection of these is not righteous. It is the ones that are fallen that are bound. Just as Scripture tells us that will happen. Understand that the pyramids are far more than structures of energy or symbols. They are star worship. And a third level of star worship. They once were the literal command centers for the fallen angels, for their craft, for teleportation, for interdimensional travel. The fallen angels used this. And their hybrid offspring, the Nephilim, and all these other crazy, weird-looking creations that they made. This is not science fiction, guys. This is ancient pre-flood Diluvian tech, forbidden knowledge encoded into the stones of Giza. It's not myths. They have documented it. It's on the text on the wall. It's all laid out in Genesis 6, Enoch, Jasher, and the Sumerian tablets. The evidence is crystal clear when you look at it in context. The pyramids not only were stargates, but spaceports. So let's begin with the layout of the Giza Plateau itself. The causeways that run from the pyramids, especially from the Great Pyramid, are long. They're straight, they're sloped structures that lead outward, like runways and modern airports. These would be a launch corridor, guiding, ascending, or descending craft. But these ancient runways didn't lead to the roads or cities. They led to ritual spaces, temples, and in the open desert, suggesting they were designed not for human use, but something far more powerful, something much more massive descending from the sky. The Book of Enoch speaks of the watchers descending upon Mount Hermon in the days before the flood. They came down in a fixed place and taught mankind every form of corrupted knowledge, alchemy, sorcery, metallurgy, astrology, weaponized DNA. But these weren't mere spirits drifting from the heavens. They descended boldly. This implies technologies, crafts, heavenly chariots. Ancient depictions on the hieroglyphics show winged discs, fiery boats, and glowing orbs. These are the same crafts shown in the Egyptian temple walls. Just like you see beings like Ra, Osiris, Thoth, ride inside these ovals, serpentine craft surrounded by fire and light. These aren't metaphors. These were eyewitness accounts of the fallen angel traveling flight path in their vehicles, operating under supernatural laws. What did we see 2 months ago? What did we see 2 months ago, guys? Winged discs, fiery boats, glowing orbs. Do you think that it's coincidence? Think about it. Isn't it just interesting how no one talks about that stuff anymore, but for like a month and a half, 2 months straight, there was thousands of them in the sky. You couldn't get away from the videos and pictures that were showing up on Twitter. We looked at some that looked like Ezekiel's wheel. We showed it on the show. It was nuts. We saw some that shapeshifted. Started out as globes and then turned into drones. Now, whether these is Project Bluebeam or exactly a replica of what happened in the ancient Egyptian days when the fallen were coming and going, and time will know. But I think it's awfully coincidental that what we saw in the skies for 2 months straight matches the descriptions on the ancient Egypt walls, and the Mayan walls, on the Sumerian texts, and the Hindu temples. And all this ties directly into the mystery of the missing capstone of the Great Pyramid. The capstone, it is the key. A key element in this ancient technology. It is the final component of this energy system, like a giant resonator in a Tesla coil. This capstone was referenced as the Binbin stone in ancient Egypt, a sacred object that came from heaven, described as a shining, metallic, vibrating capstone with power. The hieroglyphics call and tell it descended from the gods. This was not a metaphor. This was eyewitness accounts of a technological object with interdimensional origins. And without it, the Great Pyramids cannot function as it once did. Where did that object go? That's my question. Where did it go? Where did it go? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Wouldn't you bet that the elites, the globalists, have been making their own? I don't know. This capstone served as a guidance beacon, similar to how modern airports use radar, radio towers to communicate with the incoming aircraft. This capstone sent out specific vibrational frequencies, tuning the Earth's energy field, allowing the watchers in their craft to lock onto this landing site from beyond other realms. The shape and the height of the pyramid, combined with its original gold-plated casting stones, would have made it shine like a star. Literally, a mountain of light, visible for miles, a homing signal for returning gods. In the Sumerian tablets, it points to a very similar structure, the Ikur Temple. The house, which is like a mountain, was said to be the landing site for Inky's flying chariot. They made these multi-level ziggurats, stepping pyramids that appear primitive compared to the Great Pyramid, but share the same concept. Buildings that rise towards the heavens, not for worship, but for transportation. The Sumerian god Inky, the chief architect of the human rebellion, was known for crafting these temples. And on these tablets were programmed instructions listing the frequencies and how to manipulate the natural laws. That capstone was fallen angel Angelic technology placed at the apex of the pyramid to enable interdimensional travel. Without it, they couldn't open the gate at Orion. There's also a direct connection of the Tower of Babel in Genesis 11:4. Come, let us build for ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may take a name for ourselves. But this was not just about height. It was about rebuilding the pre-flood technology the Watchers had with the pyramid. Babel was an attempt to recreate the tech they had with the pyramids in that capstone. Why do you think God destroyed it? God's like, I'm not falling for that one again. It triggered God's intervention. Because the pyramids, they predate the Tower of Babel. Because it represents the same technology. The technology that was all based in sin, an attempt to pierce the heavens without God's permission. And this time, the system is already active. Now consider this. How did the fallen angels how did they return after those days? Remember in Genesis, it said, after those days, after the flood. Genesis 6:4. If the Watchers were locked away after the flood, then how did their influence reemerge in Babylon, Egypt, and other ancient empires? The answer? The technology they left behind, hidden, buried, and sealed, but preserved. The pyramids have been waiting. Dormant portals, energy sites, being used to reactivate through rituals in later generations with blood sacrifices, frequency manipulation. The priests of Egypt, many whom were Nephilim hybrids, had preserved this knowledge to maintain control and to reopen the gates when the time is at hand. Modern governments with their secret programs have shown enormous interest in the Giza complex. Everything from military discovery teams, satellite scans, and mysterious excavations have occurred recently and been kept and concealed from public view. But whistleblowers have testified that beneath the Great Pyramids was a vast chamber system, which we have now seen being revealed, containing non-human artifacts, strange metals, dimensional anomalies, enormous structures. This is protected ritual technology, which is why the secrecy has been buried. But look, it still holds power beyond human comprehension. The Nephilim, they're going to return through the gateways their fathers left them. Revelation 9 speaks of locust-like beings emerging from the abyss, led by Apollyon Abaddon, whose name means destroyer. This system is more than human. What's it going to do? They got DNA manipulation, AI, quantum computing, all merging with these ancient stargates, all leading to the reactivation of the pre-Diluvian portals. The pyramids were not just history. They are literally prophecy. They are the stones of rebellion, remnants of a time when heaven and earth forcibly merged with the fallen angels and their human allies. You ever notice that there's 144,000 stones? It's not coincidence. The cornerstones are a counterfeit kingdom key. The final pieces are being put together. They have replicated that capstone. Frequencies have been aligned. Rituals have been complete. Very soon, we're going to see the skies open up again. But what we're going to see is Christ come and intervene yet again. But he's coming to end it once and for all. And just like in the days of Noah, very, very few are going to be ready. Very, very few are going to be ready. So ancient texts, such as the Book of Enoch, reveal that the fallen angels once gave mankind forbidden knowledge. We've kind of gone over this before, but just to kind of recap, secrets of the heaven that were not meant to be known. This included all sorts of stuff, very specific mathematics, enchantments, sacred geometry. I think the knowledge to build something like the pyramids, mathematically, symbolically, as it advanced as the Great Pyramids were, came from this pre-flood exchange of wisdom from these fallen angels, whether from a righteous man like Enoch or Seth, or from the fallen ones who corrupted and once were pure. This information originated from the fallen angels, especially if the number 144,000 was encoded into the structure itself. It may have been a prophetic marker God allowed to remain as a witness to the future generations, much like how the stars in the heavens declare the glory of God. The pyramid, particularly in its original pristine state, may serve as an earthly witness of heavenly truths, rooted in divine order and with perfection. The idea that these casing stones, like the sealed 144,000, served as a protective purpose. In Revelation, the sealed believers are preserved from the wrath to come. Likewise, the casing stones protected the pyramid's core from erosion, corruption, and collapse. In the sense, the 144,000 stones became a symbolic armor, deflecting spiritual decay, just as the 144,000 servants in Revelations deflect the corrupting influence of the beast and that system. Both are set apart. Both are shining testaments to a greater order, and both are preserved through tribulation for a future glory. Mainstream Egypt, with the encoding and their history, assigns the Great Pyramids of Giza to around 2560 BC, attributing all of it to the Pharaoh Khufu. I don't buy that. This date conflicts with very compelling textual evidence that place these megalithic structures much earlier, before the flood. One of the most significant abnormalities is the weathering on the Sphinx enclosure. One of the doctors of geology from Boston University noted that the deep vertical erosion patterns on the limestone walls are consistent with prolonged, heavy rainfall and being submerged in deep water. Things and conditions that have not existed in Egypt since before the flood. And this time frame predates not only the dynastic Egypt, dynasty, but it predates before the biblical flood. So if the Sphinx was constructed in this wetter era, it logically follows that the pyramids nearby share the same architectural alignment and sacred placement of the Giza Plateau, all originates from the same ancient time period. In Genesis 6, the Bible describes the arrival of the sons of gods You know, those fallen angels who took human wives and fathered the Nephilim giants and mighty men of old. These beings were not only powerful in stature, but brought with them that knowledge that we talked about, technology forbidden from God to be passed down. And this is echoed in the Book of Enoch, especially 1 Enoch 6:8, where the watchers, the fallen angels, descend to Mount Hermon and teach humanity these very specific mathematical abilities to build. And Enoch specifically links their forbidden knowledge to the corruption of mankind, which ultimately brought the flood as divine judgment. So this sudden leap in human architecture ability and the technology, the capacity needed before the flood, gives great evidence for such a construction of these massive pyramids, especially with what we see now that they are finding underneath of it. Guys, did you know that the structures underneath of it are almost 2 Empire States building in depth? You would have to stack 2 Empire States buildings on top of each other to reach the depth to the Earth's rocky core in order to... That is so deep, guys. 648 meters, or maybe even be more. And what's even more crazy is that these megalithic beams and structures that go down that far have staircases wrap around them. How is that possible? How is that possible? With the precision. Adding to that, in the case of these things, the lack of inscriptions inside the Great Pyramid, unlike the Egyptian tombs, where the pyramids contain no hieroglyphics, no religious texts, no depictions of deities. So the absence suggests it did not originate during the same dynasty, which was rich in symbols and textual artistry. Instead, inside of these pyramids, it is sterile. All mathematical designs inside suggest a completely different era. Not one bound by cultural norms. You know, the pyramid's alignment with the Orion's belt and the cardinal points of the Earth, as well as the encoded mathematical constants such as pi and the golden ratio, reflect a knowledge beyond what the Bronze Age dynasties had. There was no way for the Egyptian dynasty at that point to know these things. It was beyond their knowledge base. No matter what you say, it was beyond their knowledge base. Even in the Testament of Solomon, Solomon speaks of angelic knowledge, a demonic labor to construct the temples. It supports that spiritual beings were involved in the architecture of large megalithic structures here on Earth. If Solomon had access to such knowledge, it stands to reason that the more ancient watchers had similar forces to shape these megalithic structures, especially in Job 38:4-7, where it hints at the presence of spiritual beings shouting for joy as the earth was being laid out, representing the presence and involvement in Earth's formation in its early construction. Not only that, you have stuff from the Sumerian Anunnakis, the Hindu Devis, the Mesopotamian legends, all speak of ancient gods descending from the heavens, teaching mankind to build great megalithic structures. And they all completely align with the biblical account. All of them having stories of a great flood with godlike beings coming down out of the sky. They are all referencing the fallen angels. Most of these dynasties built their gods around these demigods. But we know that these demigods were the Nephilim. Every major continent has a pyramid structure, all very similar to the Giza pyramids, and every one of them having great flood markers on them, submerged in great amounts of water for extended periods of time. And all of them are in areas that have not had floods since that time period. So we take together the physical evidence of the weathering, the architectural anomalies that predate the dynasty, and then we take the biblical account of what the fallen angels were able to do, and we have a pretty compelling case. I really think that all of these pyramid structures, including the technology that we don't even talk about on this episode, are all remnants of the angelic rebellions of the fallen angels, judged by divine wrath. And these monuments stand today not as tombs of kings, but as ancient warnings of what happens when you defy God. You know, in Isaiah 19:19, the word of God declares that in that day there shall be an altar to the Lord in the midst of the land of Egypt, and a pillar at the border, therefore, to the Lord. And it shall be a sign and for a witness unto the Lord of hosts and the land of Egypt. There is prophecy in the Bible. And upon closer examination, I believe that these pillars are indeed in reference to the Great Pyramids of Giza, which sit exactly at the intersection of Egypt's geographical center and the border that paradoxes the alignment precisely with the biblical language. Unlike other surrounding pyramids, the Great Pyramids contain no hieroglyphics, no mummies, no idols, setting them apart as pre-flood monuments, a witness not to glorify man or the gods, but as a testament to the Most High God, constructed with divine guidance. What is your guys' thoughts? You know, what's compelling is the astronomical alignments found within the pyramid structure. These are technologies and knowledge that they did not have during this dynasty, guys. It is perfectly aligned with the constellation Orion. And there's only the fallen angels that would have known about the gateway of Orion. These alignments are not coincidences, guys. You guys have heard the teaching we did last week, or was it this week, about the gateway of Orion. If you guys did not hear that teaching, you want to go listen to it, because I'm leaving a lot of stuff out. A lot of stuff. Because those teachings went into great depths regarding the technology behind the pyramids. I truly believe that the pyramids were sealed and preserved through the flood as a warning, a massive warning